But my main point is, this rocket propulsion in space is ludicrous.
Now, how many satellites are in orbit? You can't get a number, but that number will range from anywhere between 1,500 to 20,000 satellites. You'll always get a different number as to how many satellites exist in orbit. What do satellites look like? The old satellites from the 70s were very large. The Navy even recently had an operation where they pretended to shoot a satellite out of orbit to minimize its danger in re-entry, and they described this satellite as being the size of a bus. Satellites used to be quite large. Nowadays, they want you to believe that satellites can fit in the palm of your hand. Now they have CubeSat satellites, and they can they can be deployed from the International Space Station by hand. An astronaut can toss one of these CubeSat satellites at the Earth. Doesn't even matter how he throws it at the Earth. You could throw it at the Earth or towards an orbital plane. It really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that you toss it and it's tumbling uncontrollably, but this is what they'll have you believe.
I'm telling you now, there are no satellites up in space. All the information is gathered from the ground, so there's no need to have satellites floating around in space taking images, because NASA just aren't putting them up there. And then people always say, "Yeah, what about the weather satellite images then? How are they getting them?" It's quite simple. They use ground-based radar to take measurements of the weather, and they put these predictions into a computer, and it gives them these animations, and that's all they're showing you, and the weather forecasts. And then they put as if you're looking down from above, so they put the land, they superimpose the Earth behind the radar data. That's all it is. None of the images you're showing are real photos from satellites up in space. They're just images, predictions from radar, and then they superimpose the information onto the background of the Earth, so it looks as if you're looking down from above. And that's all it is. There are no satellites up there. Trust me. So explain this to me, when you've got all this space junk apparently floating around the Earth, how are they taking these images and not picking up all this stuff? And there's supposed to be 20,000 satellites floating around the planet. I mean, look, this is what they reckon's up there. So how can all these satellites be taking images and never catching any of this stuff? With all this space junk in the way. The same with the Hubble. Okay? That's all it is. There's nothing up there. There are no satellites taking satellite images. Okay? It's just all ground-based radar systems, predictions and computer images. That's it.
Fibre optics are increasingly attractive for laying cables over huge distances, as in this underwater cable. Because a conventional coaxial cable becomes weakened or suffers attenuation, repeaters are needed every 4 or 5 kilometres to boost the signal. The lower attenuation of optical fibres allows for much longer lengths to be spliced together and buried at sea. Fibre optics that are less than a millimetre thick are bound together and protected by armoured cladding. To prevent snags from shipping, the cable is then buried by this submersible sea plough. Over such lengths, fibre optics still need to use some repeaters, converting optical to electrical signals, boosting them and then converting them back to optical. But once the final connections are made, the optical fibres will carry many times the amount of information as the traditional coaxial fibre.